Welcome to The Explainer. In a world that's always changing, we all think intelligence is the key, right? The ability to learn things fast. But what if I told you there's a skill that's actually more important? The skill of unlearning. Today, we're diving into Adam Grant's incredible book, Think Again. It's all about learning how to question our own opinions, embrace the discomfort of doubt, and maybe even find some joy in being wrong.
To see just how high the stakes are, I want to take you back to a crazy story. Picture this. It's August 1949. A team of 15 elite fighter fighters, these guys are called smoke jumpers. They parachute into a place called Man Gulch in Montana. There's a wildfire, and their job is to get it under control. This should be routine for them. They're the best of the best.
But this fire, it's different. All of a sudden, the wind whips around, and the fire just explodes. We're talking a 30-foot wall of flame, and it's racing towards them. It's moving so fast it could cross 2 football fields in less than a minute. Their escape route, the steep rocky hill, is basically disappearing right in front of them. As everyone is panicking and running for their lives, their foreman, a guy named Wagner Dodge, does something that must have looked completely insane. He just stops. He pulls out a match, and he sets fire to the dry grass right in front of him. His crew probably thought he'd lost it, but Dodge had just invented something called an escape fire. It was a brilliant, last-second act of rethinking. He burned away all the fuel in a small patch, laid down in the ash, and let the main fire roar right over him. He survived. Tragically, 12 of his men, who stuck to what they knew, run from fire, perished. Dodge lived because he could rethink everything he'd ever been taught, right in a life-or-death moment.
Okay, so this isn't just some old story about a wildfire. This failure to rethink happens everywhere. It's why BlackBerry, which used to be the king of smartphones, basically went extinct. It's why NASA had devastating space shuttle disasters. People got stuck on bad assumptions and couldn't see the danger. The high cost of being certain, of favoring conviction over curiosity, is all around us, from forests to boardrooms.
So here's what we're going to break down today. We'll start with why we get stuck in our own heads. Then we'll look at how to think more like a scientist, how to find the joy in being wrong, how to argue better, how to build rethinking into our teams, and finally, how to apply all of this to our own lives.
First up, let's look at the problem. We're taught that having strong convictions is a good thing. But what happens when that certainty becomes a trap, and it stops us from seeing what's really going on?
So Adam Grant says we often fall into one of 3 modes that completely shut down our ability to rethink. Sometimes we're the preacher, totally convinced we're right and trying to convert everyone else. Other times we're the prosecutor, trying to punch holes in everyone else's arguments to prove them wrong. And then there's the politician, who's just trying to win approval from the crowd. You notice what's missing from all 3 of those? Actually trying to find the truth. We're just defending our own egos.
You want a perfect, painful example? Think about Mike Lazaridis, the inventor of the BlackBerry. The guy was a genius, but when the first iPhone came out, he just couldn't see it. He went into full-on preacher mode, saying professionals would always want a physical keyboard. He prosecuted the iPhone screen as just a toy. He was so sure he was right that he got stuck in what Grant calls an overconfidence cycle. And, well, we all know what happened. BlackBerry's market share went from almost 50% to less than 1%. It's a huge lesson. Being smart doesn't save you from this trap. It can actually make you better at justifying your own wrong ideas.
So, if being a preacher, a prosecutor, or a politician is the problem, what's the solution? Well, it's learning to adopt a totally different mindset, the mindset of a scientist.
Now, this slide is really the core of the whole idea. Look at the difference. For the first 3, our opinions are part of our identity. They're our faith, our weapons. So if someone attacks our opinion, it feels personal. But the scientist, they do something completely different. They separate who they are from what they believe. An opinion isn't some sacred truth, it's just a hypothesis. It's an idea to be tested. A scientist is actually looking for ways they might be wrong, because that's how you learn. For a scientist, changing your mind isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign that you're making progress.
And this mindset kicks off a powerful loop that Grant calls the rethinking cycle. It all starts with humility, just admitting you don't have all the answers. That humility opens the door to doubt, which makes you question what you think you know. That doubt then sparks curiosity, pushing you to go find new information. And that search leads to discovery, where you get to update your views based on better evidence. This cycle is the engine that keeps us from getting stuck, like BlackBerry did.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Once you start thinking like a scientist, you can actually start to find joy in being wrong. It sounds weird, I know, but it's all about separating your ego from your ideas.
On one end of the spectrum, you've got the armchair quarterback. We all know this person. They're super confident, but don't really know what they're talking about. It's that classic Dunning-Kruger effect. On the other end, you've got the imposter, the person who's actually really good but feels like a fraud. Now, here's the twist. A little bit of that imposter-style doubt can actually be a good thing. It makes you work harder and learn more. The sweet spot we're aiming for is in the middle, confident humility. That's when you have confidence in your ability to learn, but you're humble about what you know right now.
And this quote just nails it. It's from Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner. He doesn't just put up with being wrong, he gets a kick out of it. And why? Because that moment you realize you were wrong about something, that's a moment of pure learning. It's the only time you can be 100% sure that you are now smarter than you were 5 minutes ago. You're not failing when you're proven wrong, you're just becoming less wrong. And that's a win.
All right, so we're getting better at changing our own minds. Fantastic. But what about everyone else? How do we have those tough conversations in a way that actually opens people up instead of just making them dig in their heels?
The first step is to completely change how we think about arguments. We usually treat them like a war, right? Someone wins, someone loses. But that just makes people defensive. Grant suggests a much better way to think about it. A debate is like a dance. You're not trying to beat your partner. You're trying to move together, to find a rhythm and to create something new.
So what are the dance moves? Well, the best debaters always start by finding common ground. They don't overwhelm you with a dozen weak points. They just present their 2 or 3 strongest arguments. And this is key. They ask real questions, not trick questions, but questions that show they're genuinely curious, like what evidence might change your mind. They work hard to keep the focus on the ideas, that's task conflict, and not let it get personal, which is relationship conflict. Just by framing something as a debate instead of a fight, you're inviting the other person to explore with you.
Let's scale this whole idea up. How do you get an entire team, or even a whole company, to make rethinking a part of their culture?
The magic really happens when you combine 2 things. First, you need psychological safety. That just means people feel safe enough to speak up, to admit they messed up, or to challenge an idea without getting their head bitten off. But that's not enough on its own. That just creates a comfort zone. You also need high accountability for the process. And when you combine high safety with high accountability, you get to the sweet spot, the learning zone. This is where it's safe to fail, but you're expected to learn from every single failure.
And the best companies out there live in this learning zone. You look at Pixar. They have something called the Brain Trust, where directors give each other brutally honest feedback to make their movies better. Google found that psychological safety was the single most important factor in their best teams. These places build what are called challenge networks, people you trust to tell you the hard truth and point out your blind spots. Rethinking isn't just an accident there. It's built into the system.
Okay, for our final section, let's bring this all back home. How can we use this power of rethinking on the biggest project we'll ever have, our own lives?
Grant talks about this trap he calls identity foreclosure. It's what happens when we decide who we're going to be way too early, and then we just shut the door on any other possibilities. You know, you decide at 17 that you're going to be a doctor, and you spend the next 15 years chasing that, even if you start to realize it's making you miserable. You've become trapped by a plan that was made by a much younger version of you.
So what do? You treat your life plan like another hypothesis to be tested. Grant suggests scheduling a life checkup for yourself every so often. Just take a step back and ask, when did I decide on these goals? Who was I back then? And how am I different today? It's not about giving up on your dreams, it's about making sure the dreams you're chasing still fit the person you've become.
Because that's the ultimate gift of learning to think again. It's not just about being smarter or more successful. It's about freedom. The freedom to grow and change. The freedom to let go of old beliefs that are weighing you down. And the freedom to see your life not as some story that's already written, but as a first draft that's always ready for a rewrite.
If you got something out of this, please hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe share it with someone who you think would enjoy it. Your support helps us keep breaking down these big ideas. Thank you so much for watching.